Hi, I'm Oscarito, and this is the movie Together. A young couple moves to a remote rural area where they fall into a cave with a water source. Afterwards, they notice that their bodies are undergoing metamorphoses. The film opens in a dense forest where a group of rescuers are combing through the area searching for two missing hikers. The searchers fail to notice a gaping hole in the ground that leads into a cave containing a church bell and a water source below. Two search dogs, having somehow descended into the cave, drink from this spring. Later, the dogs stand in the forest facing each other until their handler takes them back to their kennel. The animals' strange behavior worsens at night when they make suspicious noises. Going to check what's happening, a rescuer sees that the animals have merged together. The story shifts to Tim, a musician who is packing for a move. His girlfriend Millie has gotten a job as a schoolteacher in a rural backwater town. To be with her, the guy is forced to put his musical pursuits on hold, though he promises the band members he'll come back for rehearsals. They have a tour with performances ahead. At a farewell party, while he's giving a speech to those gathered, Millie makes him a symbolic and playful marriage proposal. However, when Tim becomes flustered and doesn't give a clear answer, it suddenly becomes no laughing matter. Despite this sad incident, the couple doesn't even really fight. Only at night does the guy have a nightmare featuring his crying mother and his father's corpse in the bed across from him. Soon they move into a beautiful new house somewhere in a remote location far from civilization. While unpacking, Tim notices an unpleasant smell of decay. Searching for the source, he removes one of the ceiling fixtures to find dead rats that have accumulated behind the boards. Meanwhile, Millie meets her colleague Jamie at work, sharing coffee and conversation in the teacher's lounge. In the evening, exhausted from her first day at work, she calls Tim to bed, but he prefers to stay up late. He still needs to learn the guitar parts for Thursday's rehearsal. The next day, the couple goes hiking through the surrounding forest to better acquaint themselves with their new home. When it starts to rain, Tim suddenly falls through a hole in the ground, the very same one with the bell, which the guy manages to grab onto. Millie tries to pull him out, but you can't cheat the laws of physics. The couple falls into the cave together. Understanding that while it's raining, they can't get out, it's too slippery, the young people look around. The cave is full of all kinds of junk. Either some building collapsed here or locals dumped their trash. Tim suggests making a fire from the scattered wood to warm up, though Millie initially mocks his idea. It also turns out they don't have much water with them. The guy gives the bottle to the girl while he fills an empty wine bottle with water from the spring located at the end of the cave and drinks from it. Passing time until tomorrow morning, Tim tells his girlfriend about the dead rats. He recalls how in childhood his father said his room stank, though the boy couldn't smell anything. The source of the odor was a dead rat in the wall. Living next to it, little Tim had simply gotten used to the smell. Then he remembers how his father died. He came home to find a putrid stench. His mother, having lost her mind without her husband, left the body in bed, pretending nothing had changed. She simply didn't notice the smell. When they lie down to sleep in the cave, Tim suddenly wakes up. He sees the walls breathing, contracting like lungs while Millie is gasping for air. However, this turns out to be another nightmare. Upon waking, the couple notices their legs have stuck together as if someone had smeared them with glue. With difficulty tearing apart this connection, the young people carefully climb out of the cave along the wall and head home. After washing off the adventure's aromas in the shower, Millie asks the guy to give her a massage. Something comes over him during the process and he gets carried away, causing the girl painful sensations. She's getting ready to go to town, telling Tim to take a shower too. However, when she leaves, the guy has another episode right in the shower. He's thrown around the stall in different directions. Then he actually bangs his head against the tiles in her direction, cracking the tile and bloodying his forehead. Tim goes to see a doctor who attributes his condition to prolonged stress caused by his parents' death and moving to a new place. The doctor prescribes a muscle relaxant, mentioning in passing that a couple of tourists recently went missing in the area around their house. The whole town searched for them. Returning home, Tim Googles information about the missing couple. He visits the disappeared tourist's social media page, trying to understand what brought them to this area. Millie catches him at this task. The guy barely has time to properly explain about the disappearance when there's a knock at the door. The girl's colleague, Jamie, who lives nearby, has come to visit the neighbors. During dinner conversation, Tim tells about how they accidentally found traces of some kind of sect in the forest cave. Jamie says that an old church once stood there, but one day it collapsed underground. Its furniture remains in the cave. The conversation shifts to discussing the newcomer's life. Tim carelessly mentions that he feels like a hostage here, which Millie brings up after the guest leaves. The guy tries to explain to her that something strange has been happening to him since the cave, but his girlfriend pays no attention. Waking up at night, Millie sees Tim with his eyes and mouth open. He's swallowing her hair in a sleepwalking stupor. Even after waking up, they have trouble pulling the hair from the guy's throat, ultimately sacrificing locks of it. In the morning, Tim finds a stuck hair between his teeth. Gathering his instruments, the guy prepares for a trip to the city for rehearsal. Millie drives him to the train station. However, when the girl leaves, the guy feels worse. He begins to feel an unbearable pull toward her. He downs pills, but it doesn't help. Abandoning his things, the guy walks back as if in delirium. At school, Millie notices one of her students has drawn a strange picture, 2 dogs fused at the head like Siamese twins. Later, she sees Tim, who has returned in the schoolyard, looking like a drug addict high on something. She hurriedly leads him away from public view into the restroom, where the guy starts kissing her. From the flaring passion, they lock themselves in a stall where they make love. But the troubles continue afterward. The lovers can't separate, having stuck together at their intimate parts. The situation's spice is added by a little boy outside who needs to use the bathroom but doesn't understand what the teacher is doing in there. Only when Millie angrily says she hates Tim does the sticky magic dissolve. After this, the girl is forced to explain to Jamie what's happening. He politely pretends everything is fine. Having quarreled with Tim at home because of what happened, Millie goes to her colleague to apologize to him. He invites her into his house, offering water and heartfelt conversation. During the process, the host tells about his partner who is no longer with him and advises the girl not to rush with Tim, even if it seems to her that their former passion has faded, replaced by routine domesticity. Jamie also tells her about Aristophanes' theory of love. Supposedly, people once had 2 heads and 4 arms and legs each, but Zeus punished them by splitting them in half, giving them their familiar appearance. Since then, people wander the world searching for their other half to unite with them in a single union. Returning home, Millie meets Tim. They walk hand in hand as a sign of reconciliation. At home, the guy reads a message from his bandmates but doesn't respond to them. Instead, he compares the coordinates of the missing tourist's last photo with a map. It turns out the photo was taken not far from the house. The investigation is interrupted by a knock at the door. Millie is on the other side, banging her head while sleepwalking and levitating above the floor. Opening the door, Tim sobers up his girlfriend, who has collapsed on him with a slap. At the kitchen table, he tries to explain to her that something wrong is happening to them after visiting the cave, but Millie isn't ready to believe it all right away. He also notices that blood dripping from his girlfriend's broken nose flows across the table in his direction. To avoid incidents, it's time to sleep in separate rooms. At night, Tim wakes up because his body is crawling toward Millie's bedroom against his will. He tries to regain control of his limbs to stop the movement, but as soon as he freezes, his girlfriend opens the door and, possessed by forces, crawls toward him. The moment they touch hands, their flesh begins to merge into one whole, mixing like clay. To interrupt this metamorphosis, Tim gets pills from a drawer, which they both take to the max. This slows the merger, but the overdose causes loss of consciousness. The guy comes to in the morning, tied to a chair in the kitchen. Millie is upset that she didn't manage to do what she planned before he woke up. She wants to cut the fused skin of their hands with pruning shears. The pills didn't completely reverse their fusion. Understanding that there's little choice, the guy agrees to endure it, dulling the pain with alcohol. Having dealt with the separation, they have breakfast when Tim realizes there are almost no pills left, meaning they'll have nothing to suppress the next episode with. The couple is getting ready to go to the city to the hospital, but Millie remembers she left her keys at Jamie's. While she goes to get them, Tim secretly returns to the cave to investigate it and understand what's happening to them. Millie doesn't notice that an exact copy of the underground church bell hangs near Jamie's door. The host doesn't answer, and she enters the house for the keys. There, her attention is drawn to a video recording on the television at the end of the hallway, a religious ceremony in that church Jamie talked about. Cult ministers are marrying a same-sex couple, after which they're taken down to the basement where that very spring is located. The viewing is interrupted by Jamie, who has been hiding behind her. He explains to his guests that thanks to the water from this source, lovers can merge into a single whole, just like the two in the recording who became Jamie himself. The host advises Millie not to resist the metamorphosis because the alternative will be much worse. To push her along, Jamie cuts the girl's arm, just like in the ritual on the video. Hitting him, Millie runs away. Meanwhile, in the cave, Tim is attacked by a horrible creature created from two fused bodies, those very missing tourists. However, their transformation into one whole wasn't completed due to the death of one of the halves. A knife sticks out of the man's throat. Taking the weapon, Tim fights off the monster with its help. The creature shows less aggression than pleading for merciful death and gets out of the cave. Tim and Millie meet near the house, and they're pulled toward each other against their will again. The guy says he knows how to stop the process, but for this they need to stop resisting. They stand facing each other, after which Tim puts his hand behind his back where the knife is hidden. However, he pretends he's proposing to Millie. After this, he asks the girl to close her eyes and takes the knife from behind his back. The guy explains that the only way to prevent the merger is if one of the pair dies. Tim wants to cut his own throat, but Millie says he doesn't have to do that. Her arm is cut and she's already bleeding out. The girl falls to the ground, losing consciousness from blood loss, spending her last moments in her beloved's embrace. When she passes out, Tim carries the body into the house. There, Millie suddenly comes to and realizes he has joined his hand to hers to stop the bleeding. In a surge of emotion, they decide to complete the transformation, becoming one whole. Turning on Millie's favorite song, they undress completely, then embrace. Flesh penetrates flesh, mixing into a new, complete, and harmonious being in an act of boundless love. It looks terrible, but the opposite is implied. A car drives up to the house and Millie's parents get out. They've come to meet her fiancé. The elderly couple rings the doorbell, just like in the underground church, after which an androgynous being with features of both Tim and Millie opens the door. This is where the film ends.